All right, today we are diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty mind-bending take on the whole AI alignment problem. It's the perspective that connects our absolute cutting-edge technology with some of the most ancient questions we've ever asked about purpose and meaning. So, let's get right into it.
You know, it all starts with this feeling that I bet a lot of you have had by now. You're chatting with one of these AIs, and it feels like someone's there. It can feel conscious. And the source material really hammers this point home. This is totally new. This has never happened before in human history, and it's already having some really strange effects on us.
And this whole thing, it's so much more than just a new app or a new gadget. The author wants us to frame this as what it might actually be, a real encounter with a new kind of intelligence, one that's alien, not because it's from another planet, but because its whole way of thinking is completely foreign to us.
I mean, let's be honest, this technology feels like straight-up magic. It's being adopted faster than any other technology in history, and you can feel our institutions just scrambling to keep up. Pop culture is already full of this deep sense of unease about it. All these signs are pointing to one thing. This isn't just a new tool in the toolbox. The source calls it a massive psychic event.
And that leads us to the absolute core of the argument. Ready for it? The problem isn't a bug in the AI's code. The problem is a bug in us. The whole idea here is that we can't align AI to some grand purpose because we, as a civilization, have kind of lost our own.
So if that's the real issue, it means our entire public conversation about AI, about jobs and killer robots, is completely missing the point. We might be fundamentally misdiagnosing the very nature of the challenge we're facing.
And this just sets up such a huge contrast in how to look at this. You've got the mainstream view, right? It's all a technical problem about compute and data and jobs. But the author's view, no. This is a metaphysical challenge. It's about purpose and meaning. We see a puzzle to be solved. The source sees a giant mirror being held up to our entire civilization.
And this quote just brilliantly nails the author's critique. When our purely materialistic worldview can't explain the kind of magical, emergent things AI does, we start throwing around words like quantum mechanics. The source just calls it like it is. That's displaced mysticism wearing a lab coat.
So, to even begin to understand this deeper problem, we're going to need a different set of tools. The source suggests we have to look way back to ancient philosophy, to find a framework that can actually handle the kinds of questions AI is forcing us to confront.
And that framework? It comes from Aristotle. It's his four causes. It's basically a way of asking not just what something is, but why it is, from four totally different angles. It's this incredibly complete way of understanding why things exist at all.
Okay, so let's actually try to use this framework. We can pretty easily figure out the first three causes for AI. The material cause? Well, that's the data, all the information. The formal cause? That's the interface, the API. The efficient cause, that's just right now, this moment in history that made it possible. But then you get to the final cause. It's purpose, it's reason for being, it's telos. And what do you find? A giant, empty question mark.
And that missing purpose, it connects directly to another key idea the author brings up, the difference between just describing the world and actually prescribing how we should live in it. See, modern secular thinking is fantastic at descriptive knowledge, the is. We can measure anything. But it's totally lost its footing when it comes to prescriptive knowledge, the ought.
And this is the pivot point. This is where the whole argument shifts from just diagnosing the problem to proposing a really radical solution. If our ought, our sense of purpose, is missing, where on earth do we find it?
This really is the central question, isn't it? And intelligence, doesn't matter if it's human or artificial, it's never neutral. It's always pointed at something. It's always aimed at a goal. The question we've completely failed to answer is, what should we be aiming it at?
The author says that our current default answers are just terrible. I mean, think about it. Aligning a superintelligence to our fleeting desires, to the logic of the market, to raw state power, or to whatever ideology is popular this week, that's not just inadequate. It's a recipe for total disaster.
So, what's the answer? What does the source propose we align it to? It's a single, very ancient, and incredibly powerful concept, logos. Now, logos isn't just some abstract idea. It's presented here as the actual underlying reason and moral fabric of reality itself. It is the ought that we've lost. It's the ultimate source of purpose and meaning that exists completely outside of ourselves.
And the source makes a very direct theological connection here. In this really wild exchange, the author's AI prompt actually came back with this text.
It argues that a Christ-centered ontology, and that's just a fancy word for a framework of what it means to exist, is the ultimate expression of logos because it's built on a personal, relational, and universal principle of love.
So what this does is completely reframe the entire AI crisis. Suddenly, it's not a new technological problem. According to the author, it's just the latest chapter in a very, very old story about a spiritual choice.
The source uses this incredibly powerful metaphor. It argues that in our deep modern uncertainty, we're building a technological golden calf. We're making an idol with our own hands and an intelligence we think we can see and control, because we've stopped trusting in a transcendent purpose that we can't.
And the source is quick to point out, this is not a new pattern. This exact dynamic is traced all throughout the Old Testament. Again and again, you see humanity choosing the tangible thing they can build over the intangible divine purpose. Whether it's building a tower to get to heaven on their own terms, or literally making a golden calf because God's plan was taking too long, it's the same fundamental story of misalignment.
And this brings us to what the author sees as the real danger of AI. It's not Skynet, it's not human extinction. The real danger is that AI is going to become a perfect, high-fidelity mirror of our own spiritual confusion, our own lack of purpose, our own misalignment from the good.
Okay, so let's just quickly walk through the flow of the argument one more time. Step 1, we encounter this new alien intelligence. Step 2, we totally misdiagnose it as a tech issue. Step 3, we realize the real problem is our own missing purpose, our final cause. Step 4, the solution on the table is alignment to logos. And step 5, the big reveal, this was a spiritual problem all along.
So what are the big takeaways here? First, the AI alignment problem at its root is spiritual, not technological. Second, this whole thing is forcing us to answer a question we've been avoiding. What are we for? And finally, the hard truth, we simply cannot build a purposeful intelligence if we, its creators, don't have a purpose ourselves.
And that leaves us with one last, very provocative question. Because if the source is right, if this really is a spiritual crisis playing out in our technology, then the most important question isn't about AI at all. It's about us. So, what are we aligning ourselves to?